Hello students, today let us learn the third chapter of your English textbook Behave, The Little Girl by Katherine Mansfield. This chapter is too long, so we will be dividing this chapter into two parts. Today we will deal with part 1 and part 2 will be given in the next video. Before we get started, let us find out some details about the writer. Katherine Mansfield Bosham. She was a prominent short story writer who was born and brought up in colonial New Zealand. At the age of 19, she left New Zealand and settled in the United Kingdom, where she became friends of writers such as D.H. Lawrence and Virginia Woolf. In 1917, she was diagnosed with tuberculosis, which led to her death at the age of 34. Katherine Mansfield had much influence on the development of the short story as a form of literature. She evolved a distinctive prose style. Her delicate stories focused mainly upon psychological conflicts. She was a prolific writer in the final years of her life. Much of her work remained unpublished till her death. She was born on 14 October 1888 and died on 9th January 1923. Her short stories are The Garden Party, Miss Brill, The Doll's House, etc. In the chapter The Little Girl by Katherine Mansfield, we have the theme of family relationships. Taken from her own book, Something Childish and Other Stories, the story is narrated in the third person by an unnamed narrator. In this story, the main character is a little girl. Her name is Kezia. Her father is a busy man, so lost in his business that he has no time for his family. Being a very disciplined man, he is strict with Kezia to the point of harshness. He never displays any soft feelings for his little daughter, nor does he pet her for a while. All he does is give her an emotionless kiss rather than a loving one. His presence at home frightens the little girl, and she is relieved when he goes off to work. Kezia, who can speak without stammering or stuttering to everyone else, stutters in her father's presence. Yet, despite all, Kezia's father had a loving heart and is concerned about his little daughter's welfare and well-being. The title of the story refers to the main character that we will come across, the little girl named Kezia. The theme of the story, as I told you, is the relationship between children and their parents. And the writer, Katherine Mansfield, wants to tell us that children share a very important bond of love with their parents. Although when children are small, when they are young, they do not feel that their parents have love towards them because their parents are very strict. And many actions of the parents seem unjustified. But as children grow up, they realize that all the acts done by their parents were beneficial for them. The parents were concerned for them, and beneath the strictness lies a heart full of love for their children. And this bond of love between parents and their children has been highlighted through the story by Katherine Mansfield. Through the little girl, the writer wanted to portray the bond of love and care between the parents and their children. Now, let us study the chapter in detail. To the little girl, he was a figure to fear and avoided. Every morning before going to work, he came into her room and gave her a casual kiss, to which she responded with, "Goodbye, father." The opening line of the story indicates the fear that the little girl has for someone. Who is that someone or the figure to be feared and avoided? It is none other than Kezia's father, the small or little girl's father. So here he refers to Kezia's father, and the little girl is Kezia. And as she is fearful of her father, she tries to avoid him. She tries to remain away from him. Every morning before going to his work, Kezia's father would visit her in her room and give her a casual kiss. And in reply, she would say, "Goodbye, father." This action of Kezia's father actually shows that he has got love to his daughter. And oh, there was a glad sense of relief when she heard the noise of the carriage growing fainter and fainter down the long road. In the evening, when he came home, she stood near the staircase and heard his loud voice in the hall. Carriages like horse carts were means of conveyance used in the olden times. The writer says that when Kezia heard that her father's carriage was going away from home and he was leaving home, and then the sound became fainter and fainter, or the sound reduced, Kezia would have a sense of relaxation. She would feel relieved that her father had left. He is not there in the house. Now, why did she feel relieved? Because she feared her father. She was afraid of her father, and so she was relieved when when he left home. In the evenings, when Kezia's father would return home, she would hear his loud voice again, and this loud voice again made her afraid of him. Bring my tea into the drawing room. Hasn't the pepper come yet? Mother, go and see if my pepper is out there, and bring me my slippers. Kezia, mother would call to her. If you are a good girl, you can come down and take off father's boots. Slowly the girl would slip down the stairs, more slowly still across the hall, and push open the drawing room door. By that time, he had his spectacles on and looked at her over them in a way that was terrifying to the little girl. So, as Kezia's father returned home, he would start ordering all different things. He would order that tea be served to him in the drawing room. He wanted the newspaper. Then he would ask his mother to go and see if the newspaper was there outside the house, and he would ask her to get him his slippers also. Kezia's mother would call out to her and ask her to remove her father's boots. In order to make her obey, she would say that if she was a good girl, then surely she would obey the command of her mother. So again, we can see Kezia's fear for her father. That is why she would come down the stairs quietly and unwillingly. Unwillingly because she did not want to face her father. She feared him. Now, just imagine Kezia's father sitting in the drawing room on a sofa wearing his spectacles, and he is looking at Kezia over the spectacles. And now the way he looks at her terrified her. She was horrified because maybe it seemed to her that he was staring at her. Well, Kezia, hurry up and pull off these boots and take them outside. Have you been a good girl today? I don't know, father. You don't know? If you stutter like that, mother will have to take you to the doctor. Kezia was reluctant in her work. She was slow in her movement, and so her father would tell her to hurry up and remove his boots and keep them out of the room. And then he would ask her if she had been a good girl that day. And Kezia replied that she did not know. She used to stammer when she replied to her father. Why was she stammering? Because she was not confident. She was afraid of her father, and that's why she did not have the confidence to talk to him in a proper manner. On listening to her stammer, Kezia's father would imitate her, and he would also stammer like she did. He says to her that if she stuttered or stammered as she did, then her mother would have to take her to the doctor for a checkup. And of course, children are afraid of going to doctor. She never stuttered with other people, had quite given it up, but only with her father, because then she was trying so hard to say the words properly. What's the matter? What are you looking so wretched about? Mother, I wish you taught this child not to appear on the brink of suicide. Here, Kezia, carry my teacup back to the table carefully. So here, the writer tells us that Kezia never stammered while she spoke to other people. It was only when she talked to her father that she lacked confidence, and that is why she tried very hard to speak properly and she stammered. Now, Kezia's father looks at her. He feels that something is wrong with the girl, and he asked her why she was so unhappy. And then he tells the mother that she should teach Kezia to behave in a better way, and she should not appear as if she is so unhappy that she is about to end her life. So he wants to say that Kezia seems to be unhappy with her life that she did not want to live any longer. He hands her his teacup and asks her to place it back on the table carefully. He was so big, his hands and his neck, especially his mouth when he yawned. Thinking about him alone was like thinking about a giant. Here we can see what is Kezia's feelings about her father, the vision that Kezia has of her father. She feels that her father was so big, he was just like a giant. Kezia felt that his hand and his neck and his mouth were all so huge, especially when he yawned. It seemed as if he was a huge monster. And whenever Kezia thought about her father, she felt that she was thinking about a giant. On Sunday afternoons, grandmother sent her down to the drawing room to have a nice talk with father and mother. But the little girl always found mother reading and father stretched out on the sofa, his handkerchief on his face, his feet on one of the best cushions, sleeping soundly and snoring. Every Sunday, during the afternoon, Kezia's grandmother sent her downstairs to the drawing room in order to spend time with her parents. So Kezia was supposed to behave in a nice and a decent way in front of her parents, and they had a formal get together. Here we feel that Kezia felt a bit neglected. Every Sunday afternoon when she was sent to her parents to meet them in the drawing room and have a nice talk with her parents, they were busy doing their own things. Her mother was busy reading and her father was busy sleeping and snoring. Kezia had this image of her parents in her mind, that they are busy with their work and they don't have time for spending with the girl. They did not talk with her. They didn't spend time with her. On the other hand, they were busy doing their own business or their own things. She sat on a stool, gravely watched him until he woke and stretched, and asked the time. Then looked at her. Don't stare so, Kezia. You look like a little brown owl. All the while Kezia's father was asleep, she would just sit on a stool and watch him carefully, till the time he would wake up and stretch his body, and then would ask the time and look at her. Kezia's father would compare Kezia to a little brown owl. He would say that Kezia was staring at him just like an owl does. One day, when she was kept indoors with a cold, her grandmother told her that father's birthday was next week and suggested she should make him a pincushion for a gift out of a beautiful piece of yellow silk. Now, Kezia was not well. She had a cold. So she was supposed to stay at home. So her grandmother suggested that as she was at home and her father's birthday was approaching, she could make a beautiful gift for her father. She asked Kezia to make a pincushion for her father, and she also gave her a yellow colored fabric of silk to make the cushion. Laboriously, with a double cotton, the little girl stretched 3 sides. But what to fill it with? That was the question. The grandmother was out in the garden and she wandered into mother's bedroom to look for scraps. Kezia put in a lot of effort to make the beautiful gift for her father's birthday. She used double cotton, it refers to the thread, and she stitched three sides of the cushion. Now, Kezia had prepared the back shape of the cushion. She had to stitch the fourth side, and before that, she had to fill the cushion with something, and she did not know what to fill the cushion with. Kezia was confused that what she should use to fill in the cushion. As her grandmother was out in the garden and she was just looking for something that she can use to fill that bag, she searched everywhere and she reached her mother's bedroom. She was looking for bits of paper or a small piece of cloth to stuff into the cushion. On the bed table, she discovered a great many sheets of fine paper, gathered them up, tore them into tiny pieces, and stuffed her case, then sewed up the fourth side. That night there was a hue and cry in the house. Father's great speech for the Port Authority had been lost. Rooms were searched, servants questioned. Finally, mother came into Kezia's room. Now, Kezia is a small little girl. She is very young. Now, what she does? On the bed table, she found a sheet of paper. So, she just gathered all the sheets, then tore them and stuffed those pieces of paper into the cushion. And then she stitched the fourth side of the cushion and she had prepared a beautiful birthday gift for her father. And many of you can relate this experience of Kezia to your own. Many children do such things unknowingly, such mischiefs unknowingly. They do not intend to create any mischief or harm anyone, but they end up doing that. Now, Kezia has torn some important papers, and there was a lot of shouting in the house that night because Kezia's father had prepared a speech for the Port Authority for a meeting, and he was unable to find that piece of paper that he kept on the table. Now, we all know where the speech has gone. It has been torn into tiny pieces, and Kezia has stuffed that into the cushion. Now, the family searched everywhere. They asked the servants, they questioned the servants, but no one knew where the sheets of paper had gone. And finally, the mother reached Kezia's room. We know mother will find the bits of paper with Kezia. And that's all for the first part. And the next part of the chapter we will see in the next video. Thank you for watching.